Gather here! Gather here! Are you gathered here? Are you gathered? Can you hear? Long ago, Hairy Spider crouched in his hole. He had been there many days and many nights crouching and waiting for a morsel of food to wander by. He had been there many days and many nights, and he was cross because of the waiting and the hunger and the thirst and the boredom. Won't something come along soon? A bird, perhaps, a mouse. Even a scorpion would be welcome, something, anything. Even if I couldn't eat it, I would be satisfied just to have the opportunity to leap out and stretch my legs and plunge in my fangs and pass along my poison. What a life! Just then, it started to rain. This was not yet the time for rains, and Hairy Spider was dumbfounded. Heavy drops pounded on his roof. This will never do, Hairy Spider complained, when the power of speech was again restored to him. A flock of birds could land just outside, and I wouldn't hear them. A great file of mice could be marching by, each with the tail of the one before held lightly in its teeth, and I would not know. A scorpion could be dancing just above my head at this very moment. In frustration, Hairy Spider burst out of his hole and looked out at the world. No birds, mice, or edible things of any variety. Nothing indeed but the dusty waste and the falling rain. And oh, Hairy Spider was miserable. He sat there while the drops played him like a drum, watched his hole fill with water. Well, that's one thing, Hairy Spider thought. At least I didn't drown. But I suppose maybe I will if this rain doesn't stop. Madness! The stars have not completed summer's dance. All this rain, it's unheard of. It's unfair. And there, Hairy Spider might well have drowned in the rain and the rising water and his own miserable nature. Did he die? Did he? Did Hairy Spider die there outside his flooded home? Of course not. Thank you, my children. You are right. You know old Hairy Spider did not die. Hairy Spider looked into the rain and saw a man. Now you know, and I know, that man and Hairy Spider have had nothing but trouble for each other since they first laid on eyes. So old Hairy Spider, he was just about ready to turn away and scuttle off. Didn't want to give man the satisfaction of seeing him in such desperate straits, you see. But when Hairy Spider looked again, he saw that this was not a man of the people, but just a man. And no normal man, Pale Man. Pale Man was short and thick and covered in light hair. He shivered in the rain, showing his weakness to all the world, but also tilted his head right up to the sky and let the water rush right down his throat, just exactly the same way the water had rushed into Hairy Spider's hole. Who is this Pale Man? Hairy Spider wondered. I don't know him, so it stands to reason he cannot know me. Maybe I can trick him into giving me shelter from the rain. I've had my fill of water, but I hunger still. Maybe I can trick him into giving me good food to eat. I've missed every chance I've had to bite and poison man. Maybe things will be different with this Pale Man. I must try. So Hairy Spider marched and sloshed his way to Pale Man and shouted up at him, "Hey up there! Hey you, Pale Man!" Pale Man looked down with eyes the color of spring sky, blind eyes that saw still, and laughed at Hairy Spider. Now Hairy Spider knew he hardly looked his best. He was dripping wet and thin from hunger and shaking with fear that the rising water would carry him away and drown him. But if there was one thing that Hairy Spider hated, it was to have someone laugh at him. So he pulled himself up to his full height and bit down hard on Pale Man's foot. But the Pale Man's foot was all wrapped up in a boot such as you have never seen, oh my friends. No, you've never seen it, let me assure you. This was a Pale Man boot. It rose all the way up to here on his leg. Don't laugh. And it was thick as your finger, I tell you. So old Hairy Spider's fangs got stuck right in that boot, and he wiggled this way and that, but he couldn't work himself free. Oh, he'd been embarrassed by his appearance before. If he'd been angered by the Pale Man's laughter before, Let us say that both embarrassment and laughter found new heights. Pale Man reached down and pulled Harry Spider free, cradled him gently in his soft pink hands. Yes, pink? Pink like that rock, right there, his hand. Yes, both of them. No, he wasn't sick, that was the color of his hands. Are you ready to hear the rest of it? Pale Man reached down and pulled Harry Spider free, cradled him gently in his soft pink hands, brought him up to his face, and said, "Little brown brother, have I offended you? I am sorry. I am new to these lands. Tell me about them, and I will give you a great reward. You need but ask, and if it is in my power to give, I will give." Well, as you can imagine, old Harry Spider thought this a great bargain indeed. He spun fabulous fabrications about dragons and sand serpents as large as this lodge. He said he was a dreamer of the first order and could make himself into anything, into sky itself, or mountain, or dust. He spoke often of man, and said that man was a pathetic plaything Harry Spider tolerated only as you might tolerate a mewing baby. Pale Man listened gravely, attentively, so kindly, in fact, that Harry Spider very nearly forgot himself, but then not quite. "Thank you, Harry Spider," said the Pale Man. "What is it you desire? If it is in my power to grant, I shall grant it to you." "You are most generous," the sly Harry Spider replied, "and I do hate to ask for anything at all, but you see, with all this rain, I have lost my home." "That is terrible indeed," Pale Man sympathized. "Perhaps we can find you a new home, or make one. What sort of place do you need to call home?" "Oh, very little indeed," Harry Spider copied Pale Man's manner of speech. "I need nothing but a close little hole in which to live. I can make the lid. I need just a warm little spot in which to rest, and from where to launch his attacks," he thought, but did not add. "A hole! Oh, then we have a problem, for look." Pale Man gestured all about them. "The world is flooded. We'll not find you a hole until this passes over and the waters ebb." "It is terrible, it is terrible. If only there were a hole, if only," Harry Spider very nearly cried. "But wait, look there. Why, your mouth, your throat. It is perfect, just perfect. What spider could ask for a better, more cozy little spot to cower in while the rain drops down all around? Oh, I know it is asking a lot, Pale Man friend, but it would only be for a little while, and I'd come out whenever you wished me to, and what a story you'd have to tell your pale friends." Pale Man was hardly pleased at the idea, but he had promised to give what he had in his power to give, so in short order he opened up his mouth, and in popped Harry Spider. Yes, well, you can imagine, can't you? Those 8 hairy legs brushing around your tongue and inside your cheeks and then scuttling back to nestle down in your throat. It makes you gag just thinking about it, doesn't it? Well, it made Pale Man gag too. His throat closed in on Harry Spider, just as old Harry Spider knew it would, and gave him all the cause in the world, not that he needed it, to plunge his old fangs into Pale Man's neck from the inside. Oh, how he looked forward to the release of his poison, the flailing of the Pale Man, who was far better and more gullible than man, and then Pale Man would swell up and die, and Harry Spider would feast for weeks as his human raft floated around the desert. Indeed, that very thing might have happened, except that what Harry Spider had not realized was that he had left his fangs buried deep in Pale Man's boot. That thick leather was so tough that when old Harry Spider had been pulled free from that boot, he'd also just then pulled his mouth clear of his very own stinking fangs. No. Pale Man did not kill Harry Spider. He didn't know what Harry Spider had in mind, or didn't care. He let Hairy Spider ride around in his mouth and throat for 40 days and 40 nights, until the water receded, and he could spit old Hairy Spider out to make his own hidey hole. And for 40 days and 40 nights, Hairy Spider rode around with meat all around him, and poison practically bursting out of the sacs in his mouth, and what he wouldn't have given for a new pair of fangs. But there wasn't a pair to be found until the water went away and Pale Man spit him out, and Pale Man's boots were once more free of the flood waters. Hairy Spider wrenched out his fangs and huffed away. Pale Man marched his way all over the land, and met a multitude of the people. He told them of his adventure with Hairy Spider, and many were impressed. They welcomed Pale Man to their lodges and their homes, and showed him everything, everything. Only a few of the people smelled that Hairy Spider's smell on Pale Man's breath, and wondered if Pale Man was any more to be trusted than old Hairy Spider. Fewer still spoke up. There was one man who did, of course, but that, oh my children, is another story.